My name is Charlie Taublieb. I'm going to be, I'm actually in charge of all the seminars that are going to be done through the screen print end for the entire week. And so this is really more of an overview of what we're going to try and accomplish over the next 5 days. So this one's a pretty quick and dirty one. If you have questions, I'll certainly take care of them at the end. So we're going to be covering a variety of different screen printing topics, all of which have to do with direct screen printing on textiles. So I have speakers lined up for a huge variety of different topics, from people talking about growing their business that are young into a more award-winning, profitable businesses. I'm going to be doing a whole series of seminars on paperwork, which I hate because it's boring, but it's a necessity. I'm going to be covering multicolor printing on darks, and I'm doing that in my booth, which is next door. So I'm going to go through a long, involved design aspects, as well as separations, as well as mesh, screens, squeegees, print procedures, etc. Rich Hoffman is going to be talking about some of the new and innovative things in screen printing on the manufacturing end as far as equipment goes. I have people from SGIA that are going to be doing presentations on some of the new laws and some of the new issues that you have to deal with as a screen printer. Samir from Turkey is going to be talking about how to go green. And of all the shops I've been to over the years, his is truly the only one that is completely environmentally green. Nothing goes down his drain. Everything goes through a series of equipment that he had built, goes into a 1,000-gallon holding tank. That gets sent out, gets filtered, comes back. And so when they talk about going green or being environmentally friendly, the problem with environmentally friendly is there's no one who's actually identified what environmentally friendly is. And so that's part of what he's going to deal with. A lot of people have a misconception about that, thinking that if they go to a water-based ink, it's environmentally friendly. The inks themselves might be, but the handling of them is the other issue. And so anything that's going to go down the drain, whether it's water-based, acrylic, silicone, plastisol, doesn't matter. Without having proper filtrations, you're no longer environmentally friendly, even though you're using quote-unquote environmentally friendly inks. Some of the other speakers, David Blake is going to be speaking, and he's from M&R as well, about the state of screen printing throughout the world. And it's always an interesting thing because I'm from the U.S., and in the U.S., everyone thinks that they're the greatest printer. And as I travel around the world, you find that two things occur. Every company I've gone to, no matter where in the world, they all have the same problems. And if you were to go from here to Indonesia to Pakistan to China to Europe, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that changes from one print shop to another is the language. Everybody else has the same issues. You never get paid enough. You never get paid on time. Your employees are never quite there when they need to be, et cetera, et cetera. In any event, I think David is going to be talking about some of those issues. Who else do we have? So Mark Gervais is one of our speakers, and he runs the largest screen print shop in China. And I think at this point he has 60-something automatics and over 4 kilometers of print tables. So you'll certainly get a perspective of what it's like to run a very large shop. And he is an American living in China. Definitely different than what most of us understand about a print shop. You know, when you have a nice-sized shop, I had 100 people in mine. I thought that was pretty good. I think he has 1,600 people in his print shop. So it kind of gives you a feel for what people have to go through. And I think that's really one of the nice things is you'll have the opportunity to listen to a lot of these guys and ask questions. And I think that's a good thing. I know in my shop, I loved my shop up until about 35 people. And then after that, to me, wasn't as much fun because I didn't really know everyone there. They didn't really know me. And so if I were going to do it again, I'd probably keep it to a moderate-sized shop. Other topics I'm going to be talking about, paperwork, which I kind of mentioned. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's a necessity. So I'm going to be going through everything from a proper order form to to proper documentation. So when you do a job the first time, 5 years later, you can come back and duplicate that job, which screen printers have a difficult time doing the same job 5 minutes later. So there are things that you need to have and need to know in order to be able to have a very successful shop that is capable of making the same print look the same way each time, good, bad, or otherwise. The important thing is to be able to duplicate it when you have a customer that reorders. I think we're doing something on 4-color process, but I'm not positive. And if we are, it would be me. I should probably look at my notes and figure out what I'm going to talk about. In any event, I think I've covered most of what we're going to. Let's see, Johnny Shell is going to be here from SGIA, and he's doing a whole PowerPoint presentation on screen making, which the funny thing in this industry, we're called screen printers, and yet the worst part of every shop is their screen department. So as a consultant, I travel a lot, and I go into a lot of factories, and I probably spend 60 to 75% of my time straightening out the screen room. And so getting that part right is definitely a very challenging situation, but at the same time, critical, because that's what we have to do every day is make screens. All right, so in any event, questions that I can answer. Things that you're here for. Obviously, you're all screen printers, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Or maybe you're not and you're curious and you're thinking about getting into this. I'm going to tell you now, go away, okay? We have enough printers in the world. Questions that I can answer. Yes. Okay, so question has to do with the difference or the crossover of screen printing and digital. So when digital first came to the U.S., I was brought in by Kornit to help them put distributors into the U.S. And certainly they're not the first company. The first company that I know that I've seen digital from was actually Mamaki, and that was probably 20 years ago now. And when I saw that print, it was on a white shirt, and it looked like it had been washed 50 times. It looked awful. And so at that point, I dismissed it completely because if that's all they had to show, who cares, okay? When I met with the people from Kornit, I said, yeah, I've seen digital before, and you know what? Unimpressive, didn't do anything for me. And so their comment was, well, we can print on a black shirt. And so obviously as a screen printer, that was one of the things that we could do any color shirt, and the digital that I had seen was strictly for light colors. And so they definitely got my attention about that. At the show, which was in Minneapolis, the SGIA show, I said, okay, so show me the shirt. And they said, well, the machines we brought are only for light colors, but we have a shirt in the booth. So I went and I saw the shirt, and it was a white print on a black shirt. It was really not white. It was kind of like a faded gray, okay? I mean, it was awful looking, but you could read it. And obviously over the years, not only Kornit, but many of the other companies have improved to the point of putting out some great looking stuff. What I look at is, I'm a screen printer textile-wise. Do I think that's the only way to go? I do not. I truly am someone who feels that you need to be able to bridge all the areas, but you have to get an understanding of what each one can do from a production side and from a cost side. And so the direct-to-garment machines, the way I look at them, are great for short runs. That doesn't mean they don't know how to do a long run. The biggest problem is the cost of the ink, okay? You're generally looking at anything from about $1.50 and up to do a garment, where that same print done by a textile printer could be done for less than 5 cents. And so in looking at that, they definitely have some wonderful resolution. Some of the newer Hexacolor machines have a fantastic range of color available, but they can't do it for our price, and they can't do specialty inks yet, okay? And Is that a factor? It is. It's a very major one to me because I can come in and use a high density or dimensional ink. I can come in with discharge and do certain effects that you can't do, even though they do have discharge available. Controlling it is tough. The time it takes, and Kornit right now I think is the only one who has an internal pre-treatment. Everyone else has to do a pre-treat on the side, hit it with a transfer machine. You're now on a flatter surface. Not that that's a bad thing necessarily, but certainly not what I like. I like more of a textured feel. The biggest area for the direct-to-garment to me is certainly the internet, where you can do $1, $2, $20, $30 a shirt. That's great. On the screen print side, once you get below, one color work, we can do anything. Okay, 1 shirt, 10 shirts. But once you get into multicolor, you really have to have enough volume to justify the cost of the screen, the cost of setup, and then the print. So there is a very distinct difference between which way you go based on money, and money being the major factor. Besides direct-to-garment, I'm definitely a fan of sublimation. I love overall sublimation prints. They have their issues. They have to be on 100% polyester to get the most out of it. But a lot of the garment companies are now putting out some really wonderful performance fabrics, so that's a definite way to go. Cost-wise, less than direct-to-garment, but still considerably more than screen print. So it's definitely an option. There's some companies that have done some wonderful things where they've added screen print on top and other kinds of embellishments. Great for winning awards at a show, not so great for actual production, okay? This is an industry where everyone is looking for their bargain, okay? And it's always been, the guy down there can do it for less, okay? And so my attitude is very much like the gas station attitude. This is my price, take it or leave it. Guy can do it for less, then why are you in my shop? Go to somebody else's, okay? The biggest thing that I look at when I go into factories is their quality and their productivity. And if you're not putting out great quality, you need to examine why not. And will direct-to-garment give you a better quality print? They can give you an amazing detailed print, but they can't give you the color range. Even with the hexacolor machines, you're still limited on Pantone colors. Okay, I remember when the big wide format stuff came out and Coca-Cola in Europe wanted to have banners done. Their color, their Coca-Cola red, is not capable of being made with CMYK. And so Coke had to deal with the issue of, do we get off of our color in order to go digital, or do we screen print? They elected to allow them to go off color, which is a very unusual thing for a company like Coke. The answer was, sorry, we can't do it, okay? That's one of the things that I think as a screen printer I would focus in on is I can give you a Pantone color where the digital can't, but digital can certainly do some wonderful things. And so each discipline has its own positive and negative side. And that's what I look at. And if I had a shop, would I have digital as well as screen? I think digital has a great use in terms of the art department taking a design, outputting it on a shirt to see if they like the size and the general color. Okay, it's not perfect. It's all right, I can make adjustments. For photo shoots, no one's going to be able to tell the difference anyway, so I can kick one out. Here it is. Would I try and really sell much? Unless you have a retail situation, you're going to have a difficult time getting people to come in and spend $20 to $30 on a T-shirt. But, if little Johnny is having his birthday party, will his mom spend $20 a shirt for 10 shirts to give out to the kids? No question about it, they will. So marketing, I'm a huge fan of marketing, okay? So we're now 28 years removed from the pet rock. I don't know if the pet rock hit Europe, but it hit America 28 years ago. And so it was a rock. It came in a cardboard house on a bed of straw and a manual about how to take care of your rock. And you're laughing, right? So it was a college professor who did it to prove to his students that you could sell anything. I think they sold 15 million rocks, okay? So I went to Bloomingdale's in Manhattan to buy one, and they were sold out. I'm thinking, really, you sold out? There were people who still have the rocks on their desk. They painted faces on them and stuff. So it's not what you have, it's how well can you market it and how well can you separate yourself from the next person. This guy sold rocks, okay? You could walk outside and pick up a rock. So why did he sell 15 million of them? Marketing, okay? See you, come and visit me next door. Other questions? Okay, so July 1st starts my 40th year in the industry. I came into this, I was a graphic designer for ABC Network. I was doing the button for the Wings concert tour in '76. I was going to be at Madison Square Garden. The guy who came up to see me said, hey, can you blow that up? I want to put it on a t-shirt. I'm selling shirts on the street. Yeah, I could do that. Blew it up, did a 3-color design for a black shirt for him. Came back a week later and asked if I could do another design, so I did. And so then he came back and said, hey, why don't we start a company? You do the designing, take your accounts with you that you already have, and we'll get into screen printing. So I came in as a bootleg rock and roll printer. So if you were at a concert in the 70s in the US and you bought a shirt out on the street, there's a good chance you bought one of mine, because I had about 350 guys on the road traveling throughout the US selling shirts at all the concerts. And then we hooked up with a company in England, and they actually were smarter than we were. They went legitimate, so mobile merchandising. Okay, so we were doing the designs for mobile and sending it over, and then they finally got to the point where they took over. Anyway, I did that until about 1981. I think I have a book in my bag that has some of my shirts in it. It's a guy's collection, and he obviously loved the shirts that we put out, so he must have a dozen of mine in his book. But anyway, I learned how to print black shirts. And I understand in 1976, there was no such thing as a flash cure. Hadn't been invented yet. And so everything that we did had to be wet on wet, one stroke on a black shirt, and it had to look good. And I do have a shirt with me from a 1979 design of King Tut. And it's a 5-color print on a black shirt. It's done with today's inks, but the artwork from 1979. And I'd be happy to put it against anybody's shirt, okay? It's, when I do my black shirt seminar, I'll be showing it. But my background was black shirts. 99.9% of what we did was on a black shirt. But here's the difference that I had that you don't have. I had the greatest customers in the world. They never returned anything, and they never complained. Of course, they never knew who sold them the shirt and where to go, but we never had an issue. It's like, so did you ever have a curing problem? I don't know. Nobody ever complained about it, so I guess I didn't. In looking at some of the shirts in his book, we may have had a couple of problems here and there, but that was my background. And then I got into doing what I do now, which was consulting. I was working with a children's wear company that was about a $100 million company back then. We would make their screens and do their sampling, and then they'd show us their prints, and they were awful. So I got hired as a consultant to go down to Alabama and see what their problem was. And then in 1980, I got to speak for the first time at an SGAI technical symposium on black shirts. And I've been speaking at shows since 1980, and I speak at all the ISS shows. As a matter of fact, the only one I missed was the very first one. I sent my partner, which was useless. So I put together a workshop program. I do a 5-day hands-on workshop at SGIA headquarters. I do a lot of the FESPA shows. Pretty much all of them, if there's screen print involved, I'd be there. So I do that show in China, Brazil, whatever. And what I do for a living is I go into factories, I straighten out technical problems, teach new techniques, and fire up the employees and get them to do what they're supposed to do, or beat them up. Okay. Anyway, hopefully that gave you a bit of a rundown. Come and visit me. I'm next door. If you're female and you'd like to print a shirt, if you're male, you can watch. Nobody's interested in seeing a man print a shirt. All right, thank you very much.